So we're having dinner one night at home, and I ask my freshly minted teenage daughter of 13 to pass me the dessert, to which she promptly looks at me and says, "Dad, it's dessert." So I smile and I repeat my request, to which she flips out a phone, Googles the pronunciation of the word, and this voice goes, "Dessert, dessert." And I get this look of, when will my parents learn? At that moment in time, there was a fundamental shift happening in the nature of this dad-daughter relationship. And I was at a crossroads. I could do one of two things. I could either ignore it and act like this was just another casual show of better English, or I could accept it and do the right thing, which is, in all humility, say that yes, my English was a teeny bit better thanks to this experience. And more importantly, I could show my two teen kids that I practice what I preach about humility and the ability to always learn. 10 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. Hell, 5 years ago, this wouldn't have happened between a father and his 13-year-old. Because my 13-year-old is part of Gen Z, a generation defined as those 18 years of age and below. A very different generation growing up in very different times. And just like a parent who's molding his style from that of parents some years ago, even marketers need to do the same to ensure that their brands stay relevant to the Generation Z of today. And which is why I believe that marketing to Gen Z is very similar to parenting our Gen Z kids. With one small difference, of course, which is that my brands don't roll their eyes at me and go, "Whatevs." So, Goldman Sachs recently released a list of 48 epic changes that have happened in the last 5 years. And looking at some of these changes, what hits me is that life today is very different from life 5 years ago. And not just in the habit of online shopping, which has helped Alibaba generate revenues of $14 billion in just one day, which is the size of industry some time ago. But I'm talking of basic fundamentals. How many of us would have taken to living in complete strangers' homes as if they were our own? Or how would we have reacted were we told that we have to open up our homes, our most private space, for total strangers to live in it? But that is a regular habit with millions of people who use Airbnb. Coping with this exponential rate of change is one of the biggest challenges that the internet has thrown at us. Access to information, the opportunity to change not just pronunciations, but habits fundamental to our life, and more importantly, forcing us to re-evaluate the tenets of critical relationships is what the internet is doing to us. The world that I helped my teenage daughter live in when she turned 13 is very different from the world today as she prepares for college. And if I accept the reality of this ever-changing world for the sake of my daughter as a parent, but I don't do the same for the same world for my brands, then I'm doing a grave injustice to my role as a marketer. So let's look at some 3 key tenets of parenting and the changes that I believe that they've undergone and how they should also for marketing. How many of us have been part of or witness to this conversation? You will not go to that party because I said so. Those conversations really go well, don't they? Respect is not bestowed on parents just because they're parents. It's not that the teens today are any more or less ill-mannered or rebellious compared to the teen generations of the past. It's simply the fact that access to information and exposure to a world that their parents don't see has made them more aware and given them the confidence to ask questions, to have discussions based on facts, to express their point of view. And they know this, and which is why they look for respect of their points of view, just like the parents expected. And this is the same expectation that brands face from the Generation Z of today. So let's look at, therefore, respect for brands. Respect for brands comes from authenticity and empathy. An authentic brand is one who is honest about who it is. It owns up to its mistakes. It's a brand that leads from the front and stands up for the values that it espouses. 91% of consumers researched with in the US said that they value honesty about products and services more than the products and services themselves. The need for brands to be authentic is not new. It's just that the criticality of that has compounded manyfold in today's day and age, because Gen Z is far more aware and demanding than any other consumer generation we've known so far. And Gen Z can sniff out a shallow fraud attempt by marketers before you can say Jack Robinson. And in today's social media manic world, where uprisings are brought about by a Facebook page, all successes and failures of a brand are out there for the world to see. Which is why a gaffe due to poor execution of genuine intentions is far better than making the mistake of trying to portray a brand as something it is not. The Gen Z of today collaborate with their peers every day, but virtually. Even study groups are on Facebook and Google Hangout, where the expertise of one student is leveraged by the entire group. And therefore, it's no surprise that 79% of consumers displayed signs of emotional distress when separated from their personal electronic devices. So, a more aware and mature consumer who's in the habit of collaborating and can't do without their device. This makes for a context of communication that's very different from what the parents and marketers are used to, one which was one way and accepted as given. Let's take the example of two topics which parents today would find taboo: sex and alcohol. It's no longer just telling the teens today, you have to wait till you're more mature physically and emotionally. More mature by whose standard? The teens today are more mature and aware and knowledgeable about both these topics than most of the parents themselves. So, and which is why there needs to be a dialogue with them of a different nature, but towards the same objective. And for brands, long gone are the days where the marketers could make a lovely 30-second TVC, run it on TV, and wait for the magic to happen. Today, there is a need for dialogue in the context of the consumers' lives. And this could be multiple dialogues in parallel. So that 30-second audio-visual miracle probably needs a coordinated post and a 140-character catalyst to drive the message home. What would you think if I told you that you have to catch the first stranger you see on the road and actually take their opinion on where you should spend your 60,000 rupees, buy an iPhone or the latest Android device? You'd think I was crazy. But that's what the Gen Z of today do. 84% of consumers actually said that they take or they listen to the product recommendation experiences of friends, colleagues, and family. 88% of consumers said they listen to product recommendations of those consumers who've written reviews online as much as they listen to the recommendations of their personal contacts. Decisions on brands are being made by the online comments and reviews of unknown users far more than marketers care to acknowledge, because the nature of authority and influencers has changed radically for the Gen Z consumer. And therefore, it's no longer the parents. It could be uncles Tom, Dick, and Harry. And which is why marketers need to understand who these influencers are, who these authority figures are in the world of their Gen Z consumers for their categories. Because if the Gen Z consumer thinks that Uncle Tom knows more than Dad, Dad can shout till he is hoarse, but the decision will be swayed by what Uncle Tom says, whoever he may be. So we've looked at three key tenets and the changes that they're going through. Dynamics of respect, constant collaboration, and the changing nature of authority figures and influences. And which is why, if you think about it, it's actually all about the shift between the what and the how. What we want our children and our brands to be is the same. We want to instill in them certain values. We want them to have a personality that others look up to. We want our brands to satisfy their Gen Z consumers and earn their loyalty. What marketing wants has stayed the same. And all that's happening around our children and brands really impact how we get them there. And which is why it's critical to be sharp and clear about what we want so that we can focus on adapting and being flexible about how we get there. And that could include parents eating humble pie to teach their kids humility, or marketers forcing themselves to unlearn and relearn how brands engage with kids. Thomas Jefferson said, "In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock." I'd like to take the liberty of paraphrasing that and saying that in matters of what we want our children and our brands to be, parents and marketers need to stand like a rock. And in matters of how we get them there, swim with the current. Because if we think Gen Z is demanding, just wait till you see Gen Z plus. Thank you very much.